The rusted metal toolbox contained 18 driver's licenses, all belonging to people who had supposedly died in car accidents along Route 66. But Detective Maya Castellanos recognized the faces in those photos because she'd been searching for two of them for nearly 2 decades. If you're into cinematic true crime stories based on real-life disappearances and cold cases finally cracked, subscribe now and tap the bell icon. Maya's hands trembled as she held the laminated license belonging to Marcus Rivera, her college boyfriend who had vanished with his sister Elena in 2006 during what should have been a simple road trip from Chicago to Los Angeles. The license showed Marcus's familiar crooked smile, but the photo had been altered. Crude scratches across his face formed what looked like tally marks. The discovery came on a sweltering Tuesday morning in August 2024, 18 years after Marcus and Elena Rivera disappeared somewhere between Amarillo and Flagstaff. Maya, now a forensic accountant with the FBI's cold case unit, had been following a paper trail of fraudulent insurance claims when she stumbled upon something that made her blood freeze. Hidden in the false bottom of a storage unit in Tucumcari, New Mexico, a unit that had been abandoned for unpaid fees, lay evidence of what appeared to be a systematic killing operation spanning decades. The storage unit belonged to Earl Hendricks, a recently deceased motel owner whose property had been foreclosed upon after his death. When the contents were auctioned off, a local antique dealer named Jimmy Restrepo bought the unit sight unseen for $40. He'd been hoping to find furniture or collectibles, not a collection of nightmares. "I thought it was just old junk," Jimmy had told the Tucumcari police, his voice still shaking from what he'd found. "Then I opened that toolbox and saw all those faces staring back at me. 18 people, 18 licenses, and every single one of them. Jesus, what they did to those photos." Each license had been defaced in the same methodical way, scratches that formed crude tally marks across the faces. But that wasn't the most disturbing discovery. Beneath the licenses, wrapped in yellowed newspaper from 1987, lay a detailed journal written in Earl Hendricks's spidery handwriting. The entries chronicled what he called Route 66 collections, detailed accounts of travelers who had stopped at his motel and never left. Maya had driven through the night from Albuquerque to Tucumcari after receiving the call from Detective Maria Santos, the local officer handling the case. As she examined the evidence laid out on the police station's conference table, she felt the familiar mixture of professional determination and personal anguish that had defined her career. She joined the FBI specifically to work cold cases, hoping one day to solve her own mystery. "The thing is," Detective Santos explained, spreading out photocopies of the journal entries, "this Hendricks character died 3 months ago. Natural causes, or so we thought. But his motel, the Desert Rose Motor Inn, has been closed since 2019. If these entries are real, this has been going on for nearly 40 years. The Desert Rose Motor Inn sat 7 miles east of Tucumcari, a faded turquoise building that had once been a beacon for weary travelers along the Mother Road. Now it stood abandoned, its neon sign dark, its parking lot cracked and overgrown with desert grass. But according to Hendricks's journal, the real activity had never happened in the visible parts of the motel. Maya's first visit to the Desert Rose came at sunset, when the New Mexico sky painted everything in shades of orange and red. The motel consisted of 12 rooms arranged in an L shape around a central office. The building's adobe walls were weathered but solid, and despite years of abandonment, the structure remained intact. What struck Maya immediately was how the motel was positioned, completely hidden from the main road by a natural ridge, invisible to passing traffic unless you knew exactly where to look. According to county records, Detective Santos explained as they walked the perimeter, Hendricks owned this place for 37 years. Bought it in 1987 with cash. Before that, it was called the Sunset Motor Lodge, and before that, it goes back to the 1950s. The motel's layout made more sense when Maya studied the journal entries. Hendricks had been methodical in his documentation, recording the arrival of what he called subjects, travelers who were alone or in small groups, people who wouldn't be immediately missed. The journal revealed a pattern. Hendricks would offer stranded motorists free accommodation, claiming their car needed repairs that would take several days. Marcus and Elena Rivera appeared in the journal on September 14, 2006. The entry was brief but chilling. 2 subjects, Chicago plates, Siblings traveling to LA. Vehicle disabled with sugar in gas tank. Male subject, Marcus, suspicious but female, Elena, trusting. Moved to secondary location after 72 hours. Processing scheduled for September 18th. Processing. The word appeared repeatedly throughout the journal, always followed by dates and brief descriptions of what Hendricks had done to his victims. Maya forced herself to read every entry, searching for clues about where the secondary location might be. The breakthrough came when she cross-referenced Hendricks's property records with geological surveys of the area. In addition to the motel, he owned 200 acres of desert land extending north into a maze of arroyos and mesas. Most importantly, he owned mining rights to an abandoned copper mine that had been sealed by the state in 1982 due to safety concerns. He reopened that mine, Maya realized, studying the survey maps spread across her rental car's hood. Look at these journal entries from 1988 onward. He keeps mentioning underground expansion and facility improvements. He built something down there. Detective Santos examined the mining records with growing alarm. The state sealed this mine because of unstable shafts and toxic runoff. If someone reopened it illegally, they could have been hiding victims there for decades. The next morning brought a full FBI evidence response team from Albuquerque, along with mine rescue specialists from the Bureau of Land Management. The mine entrance, located 3 miles north of the motel, had been carefully concealed behind what appeared to be a natural rock slide. But closer inspection revealed the boulders had been placed deliberately, creating a hidden passage just wide enough for a single person. Agent Tom Reacher, the team leader, emerged from the initial reconnaissance looking grim. It's been modified extensively. Someone spent a lot of time and money down there. We're talking about a facility, not just a mine shaft. The mine descended 40 feet into the desert floor before opening into a series of chambers that had been carved from the natural rock. LED lighting, powered by solar panels hidden on the surface, illuminated corridors that stretched into darkness. The air was stale but breathable, suggesting a ventilation system. Maya wasn't authorized for the initial descent, but she studied every photograph and video feed as the team explored what they were now calling the facility. The first chamber contained a workshop where Hendricks had apparently processed victims' belongings, cleaning, cataloging, and preparing items for sale. Personal effects filled dozens of bins: wallets, jewelry, cell phones, car keys. Each bin was labeled with dates spanning from 1987 to 2018. The second chamber was living quarters, not for Hendricks, but for his victims. Crude cells had been carved into the rock walls, each equipped with a cot, a bucket, and thick steel bars welded across the opening. Scratches on the walls showed where people had tried to count days, leave messages, or simply maintain their sanity in the darkness. But it was the third chamber that revealed the true scope of Hendricks's operation. Here, the walls were lined with shelves containing hundreds of personal items arranged like trophies: driver's licenses, photographs, jewelry, and other mementos. Each item was tagged with a date and brief description. The organization was meticulous, suggesting Hendricks had viewed his crimes as a collection. Maya studied the evidence logs as they were transmitted to the surface, searching for any trace of Marcus and Elena. She found Elena's college ring in bin number 247, dated September 2006. Marcus's wallet was in bin number 249, same month. But more disturbing were the newer items, evidence suggesting Hendricks had continued his activities until very recently. "We found something else," Agent Reacher's voice crackled through the radio. "There's a fourth chamber, and it's different." The fourth chamber was the largest, carved into a natural cavern deep within the mine. Unlike the others, this space had been furnished like a twisted version of a home. Couches, a television, bookshelves, even a small kitchen. But the furniture was arranged to face a wall covered in photographs, hundreds of them, showing people in various states of captivity and despair. At the center of this macabre gallery hung a large photograph of Marcus and Elena Rivera, taken during their final days. They were alive in the image, but their eyes held a terror that made Maya's chest tighten with rage and grief. "He kept them down there," she whispered, studying the photograph through tears. "For how long?" The answer came from Hendricks's journal, which contained increasingly detailed entries about Marcus and Elena. Unlike many of his victims, who were killed within days of capture, the siblings had been held for months. The journal suggested Hendricks had become obsessed with them, particularly with Elena's attempts to maintain hope and comfort her brother. October 15, 2006. Female subject continues to resist conditioning. Sings to male subject every night. Songs appear to be from childhood. May need to separate them. November 3, 2006. Male subject attempted escape during feeding. Injuries sustained. Female subject refuses food until medical attention provided. Unusual level of sibling attachment. December 1, 2006. Subjects have created primitive calendar using scratches on wall. Female subject insists on maintaining record of days. Consider this form of resistance to be eliminated. The entries continued through the winter of 2006 and into spring 2007, chronicling Hendricks's growing frustration with his inability to break the siblings' bond. His final entry about them was dated May 12, 2007, 8 months after their capture. Final processing of Chicago subjects completed. Resistance levels required extreme measures. Bodies disposed of in standard manner. Personal effects transferred to collection. Note: avoid sibling subjects in future operations. Maya read that entry 17 times before she could process its implications. Marcus and Elena had been held captive for 8 months, enduring horrors she couldn't imagine, before finally being murdered. The standard manner of disposal, according to earlier journal entries, involved acid baths in a chamber even deeper in the mine. But as the FBI team prepared to explore the lower levels of the facility, Maya noticed something in the evidence that didn't fit the pattern. Among Elena's personal effects was a small silver locket, one she'd worn every day in college. Maya remembered it clearly because Elena had inherited it from their grandmother and never took it off. The locket was in bin number 251, dated May 2007, but when Maya examined the evidence photograph closely, she noticed something unusual. The locket's chain was broken, but not randomly. The links had been separated in a specific pattern: 3 short sections, 3 long sections, 3 short sections. That's Morse code, Maya realized, her heart racing. Elena was trying to leave a message. The pattern spelled out SOS, but scratched into the locket's surface were additional marks that took longer to decode. Using a magnifying glass, Maya made out what appeared to be numbers, 4-7N. Detective Santos looked over her shoulder at the evidence photos. Could be coordinates, or maybe a location marker. Elena was studying geology at Northwestern, Maya remembered. She knew about mining operations, rock formations. If she had access to materials, she might have tried to map the facility. The realization sent Maya back to Hendricks's journal with new urgency. If Elena had been creating some kind of map or leaving coded messages, there might be other clues hidden in the evidence. She began cross-referencing dates in the journal with the evidence tags, looking for patterns or anomalies. What she found changed everything. Several items in the collection were tagged with dates that occurred after Hendricks's supposed final entry about the Rivera siblings. Elena's college ID was in bin number 278, dated June 2007. A bracelet Marcus had worn was in bin number 283, dated August 2007. They didn't die in May, Maya whispered, her pulse quickening. Hendricks lied in his own journal. Why would he do that? The answer came when she examined the later journal entries more carefully. After May 2007, Hendricks's writing style changed subtly. The meticulous record-keeping gave way to shorter, more cryptic entries. And there were gaps, entire weeks with no entries at all, unusual for someone who had documented his crimes obsessively for 20 years. July 15, 2007. Security improvements necessary. Subjects becoming more resourceful than anticipated. August 3, 2007. Additional restraints installed in lower chambers. Previous escape attempt nearly successful. August 20, 2007. Facility breach in Section 4. Extensive repairs required. Section 4. Maya cross-referenced this with the mine maps and realized it corresponded to an area the FBI team hadn't fully explored yet. A series of natural caves that extended beyond the modified chambers. If Marcus and Elena had somehow reached those caves, "We need to go deeper," she told Agent Reacher over the radio. There are sections of the mine system that might contain survivors or additional evidence. The journal suggests some victims may have escaped into the natural cave system. The response was immediate and alarming. Maya, we've been monitoring air quality throughout the descent. The lower chambers show signs of recent habitation. Someone was down there within the last few months. Recent habitation. Maya's mind raced through the possibilities. Earl Hendricks had died 3 months ago, which meant someone else had been using the facility. Either he'd had an accomplice, or the storage unit, she realized suddenly. When did Hendricks stop paying rent on the storage unit? Detective Santos checked her notes. According to the rental company, last payment was made in May 2024, 3 months before he died. But the unit was cleaned out. Someone removed most of the contents before it went to auction. The toolbox with the licenses, that was probably left behind accidentally. The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. If someone else had been operating the facility after Hendricks's death, and if they'd been cleaning out evidence, it meant the operation was ongoing. Somewhere in that maze of chambers and caves, there might still be victims waiting for rescue. As the sun set over the New Mexico desert, casting long shadows across the Desert Rose Motor Inn, Maya stood at the mine entrance listening to radio chatter from the FBI team below. They'd found evidence of recent activity throughout the facility, fresh food wrappers, updated electrical systems, and most disturbing of all, newly installed security cameras. Someone had been watching the investigation unfold. The realization that they might not be alone sent a chill through the entire team. If Hendricks had an accomplice, or if someone had taken over his operation, they could be walking into a trap. Agent Reacher ordered an immediate evacuation of the mine while they reassessed the situation. But as the team emerged from the depths, Maya noticed something that made her blood freeze. Fresh tire tracks in the desert sand led away from a hidden access road she hadn't noticed before. The tracks were recent, made within the last few hours. Someone was here while we were underground, she told Detective Santos. They were watching us. The local police immediately set up a perimeter around the area, but Maya knew it was probably too late. Whoever had been operating the facility after Hendricks's death was gone, along with any evidence they'd managed to destroy. As night fell over the desert, Maya sat in her rental car staring at the abandoned motel, trying to process everything they'd discovered. Marcus and Elena Rivera had been held captive for months longer than Hendricks had documented. They tried to escape, possibly multiple times. Elena had left coded messages, hoping someone would eventually understand. And now, 18 years later, Maya was no closer to knowing their final fate than she'd been that terrible day in September 2006 when they simply vanished from her life. But one thing had changed. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, she had proof that Marcus and Elena had survived longer than anyone imagined. They'd fought back. They'd resisted. And Elena, brilliant Elena who was studying to become a geologist, had found ways to leave clues that might still lead to the truth. The investigation was far from over. In fact, Maya realized as she watched the lights of the FBI evidence team working through the night, it was just beginning. Whoever had taken over Hendricks's operation was still out there, still active, still collecting victims along Route 66. And somewhere in those dark chambers beneath the desert, Elena Rivera's coded messages were waiting to be fully understood. The surveillance footage recovered from the mine's hidden cameras showed a figure in dark clothing moving through the facility just hours before the FBI arrived. But what made Maya's blood run cold was the timestamp revealing this person had been systematically destroying evidence for weeks, almost as if they'd known the investigation was coming. Maya stared at the grainy black and white images displayed on Agent Reacher's laptop screen. The figure moved with purpose through the underground chambers, pulling items from bins, removing photographs from walls, and most disturbing of all, wiping down surfaces with what appeared to be bleach solution. The person's face was never visible, obscured by a hood and surgical mask, but their knowledge of the facility's layout was intimate. This isn't random cleanup, Maya observed, studying the footage frame by frame. Look at what they're removing, specific items, not everything. They know exactly what evidence could identify them. The morning sun cast harsh shadows across the Desert Rose Motor Inn as the FBI's evidence response team prepared for a second descent into the mine. This time, Maya had convinced Agent Reacher to let her accompany the team. Her knowledge of Elena Rivera's habits and thinking patterns might be crucial to understanding the coded messages they'd found. The deeper chambers are unstable, Reacher warned as Maya suited up in protective gear. The original mine shaft extends another 60 feet down, but it hasn't been properly surveyed in 40 years. We're dealing with potential cave-ins, toxic gases, and now possibly an active threat. Detective Santos had spent the night poring over the surveillance footage with the FBI's technical team. What they discovered was even more disturbing than the cleanup operation. The security cameras had been installed recently, within the last 6 months, and they'd captured dozens of visits by the hooded figure. Someone had been using the facility regularly since Hendrix's death. There's something else, Santos told Maya as they prepared to descend. The forensics team found fresh DNA samples in the lower chambers. Not just one person, multiple people have been down there recently. And some of the samples, they're from children. Children. The word hit Maya like a physical blow. If Hendrix's operation had been taken over by someone who was targeting children, every minute of delay could mean another life lost. The descent into the mine felt different this time. Knowing that someone had been watching, that the facility was still active, transformed the sterile crime scene into something that felt alive and threatening. Maya's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the LED lights that had guided the mysterious figure through their evidence destruction. Agent Reacher led the team past the chambers they'd explored the previous day, deeper into the natural cave system that extended beyond Hendrix's modifications. Here, the walls were rough-hewn rock, carved by water and time rather than human tools. But even in these natural formations, signs of recent habitation were evident. Fresh scratches on the walls, observed Dr. Linda Park, the FBI's forensic archaeologist. Someone's been marking passages, creating a navigation system. And look at this. She pointed to a section of wall where crude symbols had been carved into the rock. These aren't random. They're directional markers. Maya studied the symbols, her mind racing. Elena had been studying geology, but she'd also been fascinated by ancient civilizations and their methods of communication. If she'd somehow survived longer than the journal entries suggested, if she'd managed to explore these deeper caves, Elena would have created a mapping system, Maya realized. She was methodical, scientific. If she was trying to find a way out, she would have documented every passage, every chamber. The team followed the marked passages deeper into the cave system, their lights revealing chambers that stretched beyond the range of their beams. The air grew cooler as they descended, and the sound of running water echoed from somewhere in the darkness ahead. In the 5th chamber, they found something that changed everything. It was a workshop, but not like the crude space Hendrix had created for processing stolen belongings. This area had been carefully carved and furnished with modern equipment, computers, printers, cameras, and sophisticated lighting systems. Work tables were covered with fake identification documents, driver's licenses, and passports, not victims' real documents, but professionally manufactured forgeries. This is a document forgery operation, Agent Reacher said, examining the equipment. Industrial scale. Someone's been using this location to create false identities for how long? Maya studied the dates on the completed documents scattered across the work tables. The earliest ones she could find were from 2018, but the most recent were dated just 2 weeks ago. Whoever had taken over the facility after Hendrix had expanded the operation far beyond simple murder and theft. They're trafficking people, Maya realized, the implications hitting her with devastating clarity. Hendrix was killing travelers and stealing their belongings, but his successor is kidnapping people and giving them new identities, moving them through some kind of network. Dr. Park was examining scratches on the workshop walls when she called out urgently, "Maya, you need to see this. These aren't random marks, they're letters." Someone carved a message into the rock. Maya rushed to where Park stood, shining her flashlight on a section of wall that had been worn smooth by years of water flow. Carved into the stone, almost invisible unless you knew where to look, were words in Elena's distinctive handwriting. "Marcus alive. Deeper system. Follow water sound. Yard 2008 inch." Maya's hands shook as she traced the carved letters with her fingertip. Elena Rivera had been alive at least 2 years after Hendrix claimed to have killed her. And Marcus might have survived even longer. "The water sound," Maya whispered, listening to the distant echo of running water that had been growing stronger as they descended. Elena was trying to tell someone how to find them. Agent Reacher immediately radioed the surface team to send down additional personnel and equipment. If there were survivors in the deeper chambers, if the Rivera siblings had somehow managed to stay alive for years in this underground hell, every minute counted. But as the team prepared to follow the sound of water deeper into the cave system, Maya noticed something that made her stomach clench with dread. Fresh footprints in the mud near the workshop entrance. Footprints that led in the same direction they were heading. Someone's been here recently, she told Reacher. Within the last day or two. The person from the surveillance footage, they're still using these chambers. The passage following the water sound led steadily downward, through a series of natural chambers that opened like a string of underground cathedrals. The air grew colder and more humid, and the sound of running water became a constant backdrop. Maya's flashlight revealed more carved messages on the walls, Elena's careful documentation of the route, including warnings about unstable areas and dead-end passages. In the seventh chamber, they found evidence of long-term habitation that was different from anything they'd seen before. This wasn't a prison cell or a workshop. It was a living space that someone had created with care and attention to comfort. Makeshift furniture constructed from salvaged materials, a collection of books that had somehow survived the underground environment, and most remarkable of all, a crude but effective water filtration system that drew from an underground stream. Someone lived here for years, Dr. Park observed, examining the careful construction. Look at this, they created a functional ecosystem. Water filtration, food storage, even a ventilation system that draws fresh air from the surface. Maya studied the living space with growing excitement and dread. The level of engineering required to create such a system suggested someone with significant technical knowledge that Elena, with her geology background, might have possessed. But the space was clearly abandoned, and had been for some time. On a makeshift table near the water filtration system, Maya found something that made her heart race. A notebook, wrapped in plastic to protect it from moisture, filled with Elena's handwriting. The entries were dated from 2007 through 2011, 4 years of careful documentation chronicling survival in the underground chambers. October 15, 2007, Marcus's leg healing well. Managed to reach lower chambers during Hendrix's supply run. Water source clean, but need to create better filtration system. December 3, 2007. H doesn't know about these chambers. Been here 2 months. Need to find way to surface, but can't leave Marcus alone. March 22, 2008. Carved message near workshop in case someone finds it. If we don't survive, at least they'll know we tried. June 14, 2009. New person arrived. Not victim, partner with H. Calls himself the Collector. More dangerous than H. Plans to expand operation. Maya's blood turned to ice as she read that entry. The Collector. Elena had encountered Hendrix's accomplice 2 years before Hendrix's own journal mentioned any partner. And Elena had recognized immediately that this new person was more dangerous than Hendrix himself. August 7, 2010. The Collector brought children. Can't let this continue. Marcus agrees. We have to try to get to surface. Warn someone. Even if it means capture. November 12, 2011. Last entry. The Collector knows about our hiding place. Marcus injured again. Going to try Northern Passage tomorrow. If anyone finds this, tell them we tried to stop it. The notebook entries ended there, but tucked into the back cover was something that made Maya's hands tremble. A detailed map of the entire cave system, drawn in Elena's precise geological style. The map showed passages that extended far beyond where the FBI team had explored, including several routes that led to the surface at locations miles from the mine entrance. They found a way out, Maya breathed, studying the map. Elena mapped multiple escape routes. Some of these passages lead to arroyos and mesas on the other side of the property. Agent Reacher examined the map over her shoulder. If they escaped through one of these passages, why didn't they contact authorities? Report what happened here. Maya studied the dates again, cross-referencing them with what they knew about the investigation. 2011. The Collector had already taken over the operation by then. If Marcus and Elena tried to report what happened, but the Collector had connections with local law enforcement, they would have been discredited or disappeared again, Reacher finished grimly. Or worse, they might have led the Collector right to their families. The implications were staggering. If Elena and Marcus had escaped but been forced into hiding, they might still be alive somewhere, still afraid to come forward because they didn't know if it was safe. And meanwhile, the Collector had continued operating the facility for over a decade, expanding from murder to human trafficking. Dr. Park's voice crackled through the radio from deeper in the chamber. I found something else. You need to see this immediately. Maya and Reacher followed the sound of Park's voice to a section of the chamber they hadn't fully explored. Here, carved into the wall with the same careful precision as Elena's other messages, was something that changed everything they thought they knew about the case. The Collector equals Deputy Sheriff James Morton. Works with others. Trafficking network across 3 states. List hidden in North Passage. Yard 2011 inch. Deputy Sheriff James Morton. Maya felt the world tilt beneath her feet as the implications hit her. Morton was still with the Quay County Sheriff's Department. He'd been one of the officers who had initially investigated Marcus and Elena's disappearance in 2006. He'd been the one to assure their families that everything possible was being done to find them. Morton's been protecting the operation for 18 years, Maya realized, her voice barely a whisper. He's the one who made sure the investigation went nowhere. He's the one who's been cleaning up evidence. Agent Reacher was already on his radio, calling for immediate backup and issuing an arrest warrant for Morton. But Maya was studying Elena's map again, focusing on the North Passage where she'd claimed to hide a list of the Collector's associates. We need to find that list, Maya told Reacher. If this trafficking network really spans 3 states, Morton is just one piece of it. Elena and Marcus risked everything to document this. We have to find what they left behind. The North Passage turned out to be a narrow, winding route that led steadily upward through natural rock formations. Maya's claustrophobia battled with her determination as the passage narrowed to barely shoulder width in some places. But Elena's map was accurate, and after 20 minutes of careful climbing, they emerged into a small chamber that showed clear signs of use as a hiding place. Here, wrapped in multiple layers of plastic and hidden in a natural crevice, Maya found Elena's final gift to the investigation. A comprehensive list of names, locations, and operational details that documented a human trafficking network stretching from Texas to California. The list included law enforcement officials, motel owners, truck stop operators, and what appeared to be a network of safe houses where victims were held before being moved to their final destinations. Deputy Sheriff James Morton was just one name among dozens, but his role was clearly central to the operation. According to Elena's notes, Morton used his position to identify potential victims, travelers who had reported car trouble or accidents along Route 66, and then coordinated with the network to ensure these people disappeared without triggering serious investigations. This is enormous, Agent Reacher said, photographing each page of Elena's documentation. We're looking at a trafficking operation that's been active for at least 15 years, possibly longer. Dozens of victims, multiple states, corrupted law enforcement. Maya studied the list with growing horror and determination. Every name represented someone who had helped destroy lives, families torn apart by people who viewed human beings as commodities to be collected and sold. But it also represented hope that Elena and Marcus's sacrifice had not been in vain. We need to move fast, Maya said, checking the time on her phone. If Morton figures out we've found this evidence, he'll warn the others. The entire network could disappear. As if summoned by her words, Agent Reacher's radio crackled with an urgent message from the surface team. Reacher, we have a problem. Deputy Morton just arrived at the mine site, claiming he's here to assist with the investigation. He's asking a lot of questions about what we've found underground. Maya's blood ran cold. Morton was here, now, probably trying to assess how much they'd discovered and whether he needed to activate whatever contingency plans the trafficking network had in place. Tell him nothing, Reacher radioed back. Keep him away from the mine entrance. We're coming up with evidence that's going to bring down his entire operation. But as they prepared to make their way back through the cave system, Maya heard something that made her freeze, the sound of footsteps echoing through the chambers below them. Someone else was in the caves, moving through the passages with the confidence of familiarity. He's not waiting for us to surface, Maya whispered to Reacher. Morton's coming down here to destroy the evidence himself. Agent Reacher immediately called for additional backup and began coordinating an emergency extraction. But Maya was studying Elena's map again, looking for alternative routes to the surface. If Morton knew the cave system well enough to navigate it in the dark, He might be able to cut off their primary escape route. There, she said, pointing to a passage marked on Elena's map. The eastern route. It comes out near the old highway, about 2 miles from the mine entrance. If we can reach that passage before Morton gets to this chamber. That's a big if, Reacher replied, but he was already organizing the team for a rapid evacuation. Park, secure all the evidence. Maya, you know this map better than anyone. Can you guide us through the eastern route? Maya looked at Elena's careful notations one more time, feeling the weight of 18 years of searching and the hope that Marcus and Elena might still be alive somewhere. Elena marked all the dangerous areas, the stable passages, even estimated travel times. If we follow her route exactly. The sound of footsteps was getting closer, echoing through the chambers with increasing urgency. Whoever was coming, Morton or one of his associates, they were moving fast, and they knew exactly where they were going. We go now, Reacher decided. Maya leads, I'll bring up the rear. If anyone tries to follow us through those passages, they're going to have to deal with me first. As Maya began leading the team through Elena Rivera's carefully mapped escape route, she couldn't help but think about the courage it had taken for Elena and Marcus to create this documentation. They'd risked everything to ensure that someday, someone would find the truth and stop the horror they'd discovered. Now, 18 years later, Maya was literally following in their footsteps, using their map to escape the same underground prison where they'd been held. But unlike Elena and Marcus, Maya wasn't running into an uncertain future. She was carrying evidence that would destroy the trafficking network once and for all. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew louder. Morton and whoever was with him were moving through the chambers with desperate urgency, probably trying to reach the evidence before the FBI team could escape with it. But they were too late. Elena Rivera's final map was guiding Maya and the evidence toward the surface, toward justice, toward the end of an operation that had destroyed countless lives. The eastern route proved to be exactly as Elena had documented it, challenging but navigable, with clear markers indicating safe passage. As they climbed toward the surface, Maya could see light filtering down from above, promising escape and the chance to finally bring the truth to light. The figure silhouetted against the cave entrance wasn't Deputy Morton. It was Elena Rivera, 18 years older but unmistakably alive, holding a rifle and scanning the desert horizon as if she'd been expecting Maya's team to emerge from her carefully mapped escape route all along. Maya stumbled out of the cave opening, gasping in the desert air, Elena's evidence bag clutched against her chest. For a moment, she couldn't process what she was seeing. Elena Rivera, the woman she'd mourned for nearly 2 decades, stood 30 feet away with graying hair and weathered skin, but the same determined expression Maya remembered from their college days. Elena. Maya's voice came out as a broken whisper. Elena turned, and her rifle lowered slightly as recognition dawned in her eyes. Maya Castellanos. Jesus Christ. I knew someone would eventually follow our maps, but I never imagined. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Are they still coming? Morton and his people. Agent Reacher emerged from the cave behind Maya, followed by Dr. Park and the rest of the team. All of them stared at Elena in shock, trying to reconcile this living woman with the victim they'd been investigating. Elena Rivera, Reacher said slowly, you've been on the missing persons list for 18 years. Missing, not dead, Elena replied, her attention still focused on the cave entrance. Morton made sure everyone assumed we were dead. Easier to stop looking for corpses than living witnesses. She gestured urgently toward a cluster of rocks about 100 yards away. We need to move. I've been monitoring their radio chatter. Morton's not alone down there, and they're not planning to let anyone reach the surface with that evidence. Maya found her voice as they moved toward Elena's position. Marcus? Is he alive? Hidden in a safe house about 20 miles from here. He wanted to come, but someone needed to stay with the others. Elena's eyes met Maya's with an intensity that spoke of years of survival and planning. We never stopped fighting them, Maya. We just had to do it from the shadows. The others. Maya's mind raced as Elena led them to a concealed position behind the rocks. How many people are we talking about? 17 survivors from Morton's operation, collected over the past 13 years. Some we rescued during transport, others we helped escape from the safe houses. Marcus and I, we became what you might call freelance liberators. Agent Reacher was coordinating with the surface team via radio, calling for immediate backup and medical support. But Maya was focused on Elena, trying to understand how two college students had transformed into a rescue operation spanning more than a decade. After we escaped in 2011, Elena explained, checking her rifle's scope, we tried going to the FBI field office in Albuquerque. But Morton had contacts everywhere. Within hours of making our report, we were being hunted by people who shouldn't have known where we were. We realized the corruption went deeper than just local law enforcement. So you went underground, Maya said. We had to. But we couldn't just hide while Morton kept taking people. So we developed a system, monitoring radio traffic, watching the truck stops and motels, identifying potential victims before Morton's network could grab them. Elena's voice carried the weight of years of carefully planned operations. Sometimes we could warn people in time. Other times, we had to mount rescue operations. The sound of voices echoing from the cave entrance made Elena raise her rifle again. They're close. Morton's desperate. If this evidence reaches federal prosecutors, his entire network goes down. 23 people across 3 states, including 2 judges and a state police captain. Maya clutched Elena's evidence bag tighter. All this is documented. Every name, every location, every operation we could verify. Marcus has a background in computer forensics. Turns out captivity gives you a lot of time to develop new skills. We've been building a case for 13 years, waiting for the right moment to bring it all down. Agent Reacher finished his radio coordination and turned to Elena. Ms. Rivera, I need you to know that you're not in any legal trouble. You and your brother are victims who acted in self-defense and in defense of others. But right now, I need to know how many people Morton brought with him. Elena studied the cave entrance through her scope. Based on radio chatter, at least 4. Morton, his usual partner Deputy Williams, and 2 others I don't recognize. But Maya, she turned to look directly at her old friend. There's something else you need to know about Morton's operation. The trafficking, that was just the profitable side business. What do you mean? The Desert Rose facility, Hendrix's original operation, that was about power, control, psychological torture. Morton expanded that aspect too. He's been using some of the victims for psychological experiments, testing methods of breaking people's will, documenting the process. Elena's voice became clinical, detached in the way Maya remembered from their college science classes. We found evidence that he's been selling this information to other criminal organizations, even some government contractors. The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. They weren't just dealing with human trafficking. They were looking at systematic psychological torture being marketed as research data. How many victims are we talking about, total? Dr. Park asked quietly. Elena was silent for a long moment, watching the cave entrance. Based on what we documented, what we witnessed, and what we found in Morton's files during our various raids, conservatively, over 200 people across 15 years. But probably more. 200 people. Maya thought about all the missing person reports that had been filed and quietly closed. All the families who had never gotten answers about their loved ones who disappeared along Route 66. Where are Morton's files now? Agent Reacher asked. Safe house. Along with Marcus and the survivors. Elena checked her watch. If we don't check in by sunset, Marcus has instructions to turn everything over to the media and the state attorney general simultaneously. Insurance policy in case Morton manages to silence us. The sound of movement from the cave opening intensified, and Elena gestured for everyone to take cover. They're coming out. Maya, whatever happens, that evidence bag cannot fall into Morton's hands. It contains the only physical proof linking him directly to specific victims. Maya looked at her old friend. This woman who had survived 18 years of hell and transformed it into a mission to save others, and felt a surge of determination that matched anything she'd ever experienced. Elena, after we get through this, after Morton is arrested and his network is shut down, what happens to you and Marcus? To the survivors you've been protecting? Elena smiled for the first time since Maya had emerged from the cave. We get to stop running. We get to testify. We get to see every single one of these bastards go to prison for the rest of their lives. Her expression hardened again as figures became visible at the cave entrance. But first, we have to survive the next 10 minutes. 4 men emerged from the cave, spreading out in tactical formation as they scanned the area. Maya recognized Deputy Morton from newspaper photos, a tall, heavy-set man with gray hair and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to authority. The others were strangers, but they moved with the professional precision of people experienced in violence. Federal agents. Reacher called out from behind the rocks. Drop your weapons and surrender. Morton's response was immediate gunfire that sent chips of rock flying around their position. Elena returned fire with calm precision, her shots forcing Morton's team to take cover behind boulder formations near the cave entrance. Morton, Maya called out, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. It's over. We have Elena's evidence. The FBI knows about your network, and backup is already on the way. Maya Castellanos. Morton's voice carried clearly across the desert air. I remember you. You filed a missing person report in 2006. Very thorough, very persistent. I made sure that report got buried, but you never stopped asking questions, did you? The casual admission sent rage coursing through Maya's veins. This man had been manipulating the investigation from day one, had looked her in the eye 18 years ago, and lied about searching for Marcus and Elena while knowing exactly where they were. You destroyed families, Maya shouted back. You destroyed lives. I provided a service, Morton replied. People disappear every day on Route 66. I just made sure some of those disappearances were profitable. Elena fired another shot that came close enough to Morton's position to send him scrambling for better cover. Profitable, she muttered to Maya. He sold Marcus and me to Hendricks for $5,000. We weren't people to him. We were inventory. Agent Reacher was coordinating the tactical response, but Maya could see they were outgunned and pinned down. Morton's team had superior position and apparently unlimited ammunition. The cavalry was coming, but it might not arrive in time. That's when Maya remembered something from Elena's map, a notation about a water route that connected the cave system to a natural spring about half a mile away. If Morton's team was focused on the immediate area around the cave entrance, they might not be watching for approach from that direction. Elena, Maya whispered, the water route on your map. Is it still accessible? Elena followed Maya's gaze toward the southeast, where a line of cottonwood trees marked the location of the spring. You're thinking what I think you're thinking? I'm thinking Marcus isn't the only one with computer forensic skills. I'm thinking someone who spent 4 years mapping every inch of this cave system might have prepared for exactly this kind of situation. Elena's smile was grim but genuine. Marcus is already in position. Has been since we spotted Morton's vehicle approaching the mine site this morning. She spoke into a small radio clipped to her collar. Shepard to Guardian. Package delivered. Request immediate cleanup. Morton's team continued their steady advance, using covering fire to move from rock to rock, closing the distance to Maya's position. But they were focused entirely on the immediate threat, not watching for approach from an unexpected direction. The first sign that the situation had changed came when one of Morton's men suddenly pitched forward, taken down by a sniper shot from the direction of the spring. Marcus Rivera, 18 years older but apparently still the marksman he'd been in ROTC, had found an elevated position with clear sight lines to the battlefield. Guardian in position, Marcus's voice crackled through Elena's radio. I have eyes on all targets. Recommend immediate surrender before this gets worse for them. Morton's response was predictable. More gunfire, this time directed toward Marcus's position. But firing at a concealed sniper while exposed on open ground proved to be a fatal mistake for 2 more members of his team. Morton, Agent Reacher called out during a lull in the gunfire. Your operation is finished. Your network is blown. Surrender now, and maybe you live to see trial. But Morton wasn't done. Maya watched in horror as he pulled something from his jacket. Not another weapon, but what looked like a radio detonator. If I'm going down, Morton shouted, I'm taking the evidence with me. The entire mine system is rigged with explosives. You've got 30 seconds to throw me that evidence bag, or I collapse the whole thing. Elena's face went white. He's not bluffing. We found explosive charges during one of our reconnaissance missions. We thought they were just for cave-ins, but if he's wired the whole system. Maya looked at the evidence bag in her hands. Elena's carefully documented proof of Morton's crimes, the names and locations that could bring down the entire trafficking network. Then she looked at Elena, this woman who had sacrificed 18 years of her life to gather this evidence. There are other copies, Elena said quietly, reading Maya's expression. Marcus has digital files. We have survivors who can testify. We have documentation stored in multiple locations. That bag is important, but it's not everything. But Maya was thinking about something else, about the surveillance cameras in the mine, about Morton's desperate cleanup operation, about the fact that someone with his resources wouldn't rely on a simple detonator system. Elena, she said urgently, the explosives, are they on a timer system or command detonation? Both, we think. What? Maya smiled grimly. Because Morton just made a mistake. He's not holding a detonator. He's holding a radio transmitter. And radio signals can be jammed. Agent Reacher caught on immediately. Park. Equipment pack. Now, Dr. Park had been documenting evidence throughout their underground expedition, using sophisticated electronic equipment to analyze and photograph Elena's discoveries. Among that equipment was a portable signal jammer designed to prevent contamination of digital evidence. 30 feet range, Park called out, assembling the device. But if he's within that range, Maya was already moving. Elena, cover me. Maya, no. But Maya was sprinting toward Morton's position, the evidence bag clutched in one hand while she pulled out her service weapon with the other. The plan was insane, but it was the only chance they had to preserve both the evidence and Elena's 18 years of work. Morton saw her coming and raised his transmitter, but Maya was counting on his arrogance, his need to gloat, his assumption that she was bringing him the evidence as requested. Smart choice, Agent Castellanos. Morton called out as Maya approached. I knew you'd see reason. Maya got within 20 feet before Morton realized she wasn't slowing down. By then, Dr. Park's signal jammer was active, and Morton's transmitter was just an expensive piece of plastic. The final confrontation lasted less than 30 seconds. Morton drew his sidearm, but Maya had spent 18 years preparing for this moment. 18 years of anger and grief and determination focused into perfect clarity. Her shots were precise and immediate. Morton fell backward against the rocks, his weapon spinning away into the desert sand. As Maya stood over him, the evidence bag still secure in her hand, she felt a strange sense of completion, not satisfaction, exactly, but the knowledge that Elena and Marcus's long fight was finally over. Agent Castellanos, Morton gasped, looking up at her with eyes that held no remorse, only calculation. You think you've won something here? You think stopping me stops the network? Maya knelt down beside him, Elena's evidence bag still clutched in her hand. Elena documented everyone, Morton. Every name, every location, every operation. Your entire network is finished. Morton's laugh was bitter. Elena Rivera. I should have killed her the first day instead of letting Hendricks play with his food. His voice was growing weaker, but his eyes remained focused on Maya. She doesn't know about the international connections. She doesn't know about the government contracts. This network, what you found, it's just the American branch. The words hit Maya like ice water. What are you talking about? Ask Elena about the foreign nationals we processed. Ask her about the diplomatic pouches. Ask her about why certain missing persons cases get federal oversight, while others disappear completely. Morton's breathing was becoming labored, but he forced out one final revelation. The Desert Rose was never about profit, Agent Castellanos. It was about research. And that research has been very, very valuable to people you'll never be able to touch. Morton died before he could say more, but his words echoed in Maya's mind as Elena and Marcus Rivera approached from their respective positions. After 18 years of separation, the siblings embraced with an intensity that spoke of shared trauma, shared survival, and shared purpose. It's over, Elena whispered, tears streaming down her face. We did it. We actually did it. But Maya was thinking about Morton's final words, about government contracts and international connections, about the possibility that the network they'd uncovered was just one piece of something much larger and more sinister. Agent Reacher approached with medical personnel and additional FBI agents who had finally arrived from Albuquerque. Ms. Rivera, Mr. Rivera, we're going to need extensive debriefings. The evidence you've collected, the survivors you've been protecting. This is going to require a major federal task force. Elena nodded, but she was looking at Maya. There's something Morton said at the end there. About international connections. Maya, when we were documenting the network, we found references to operations in Mexico, Canada, even Eastern Europe. But we never had enough resources to investigate beyond the domestic network. Marcus Rivera stepped forward, 18 years older than Maya remembered, but with the same steady presence that had made him such a reliable partner in college. Maya, Elena told me you joined the FBI to look for us, to solve cold cases like ours. It was the only way I could think of to find answers, Maya admitted. Well, now you have answers, Marcus said. But if Morton was telling the truth about international operations, about government contracts, this investigation isn't ending here. It's just beginning. Maya looked at Elena's evidence bag, then at the siblings who had sacrificed 18 years of their lives to gather proof of crimes that apparently stretched far beyond what any of them had imagined. Are you both willing to see this through? To testify? To help with a larger investigation? Elena and Marcus exchanged a look that spoke of shared understanding built over years of survival and resistance. Maya, Elena said, we've been fighting this network for 13 years. We've rescued 17 people. We've documented hundreds of crimes. But if there's a chance to bring down the whole thing, the international operations, the government connections, all of it, then yes, we're willing to see it through. 6 months later, Maya stood in a federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., watching as the final defendant in what the media had dubbed the Route 66 conspiracy was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Elena and Marcus Rivera sat in the front row of the gallery, surrounded by 17 other survivors whose testimony had helped convict 43 individuals across 6 states. The international investigation that followed Morton's revelations had indeed uncovered connections that stretched across 3 continents, involving diplomatic personnel, intelligence contractors, and criminal organizations that had been using research derived from the Desert Rose facility to develop psychological manipulation techniques for various purposes. Elena had been right. Morton's operation was just the American branch of something much larger. But Elena had also been right about something else. Documenting everything, preserving evidence, and never giving up the fight could eventually bring even the most powerful criminals to justice. Maya's phone buzzed with a text message from Elena. Coffee? I have some ideas about a few more cold cases that might benefit from your expertise. Maya smiled, thinking about how much had changed since that sweltering morning in Tucumcari when she'd first seen Marcus Rivera's face staring out from a driver's license in a rusted toolbox. Elena and Marcus had spent 18 years as ghosts, fighting a shadow war against human traffickers. Now they were alive, free, and ready to help solve the cases of people who were still missing, still waiting for someone to care enough to look for them. The Desert Rose motor inn had been demolished, its underground facility filled with concrete and sealed forever. But the memorial garden that now occupied the site bore the names of every victim Elena and Marcus had documented, not just those who had died, but those who had survived, those who had been rescued, and those who had never stopped fighting back. Maya visited the memorial garden every year on the anniversary of that August morning when she'd first seen Elena Rivera emerge from a cave entrance, rifle in hand, ready to finish the fight she'd started 18 years earlier. Each time she visited, she left 2 flowers, one for the victims who didn't survive, and one for the survivors who refused to let their stories be forgotten. The inscription on the memorial's central monument was simple but powerful, chosen by Elena herself. In memory of those who were taken, in honor of those who fought back, and in promise to those still waiting to be found. Route 66 still stretched across the American Southwest, still carried travelers chasing dreams and seeking new beginnings. But now it also carried the memory of Maya Castellanos and Elena Rivera, 2 women who proved that sometimes the most important thing you can do is refuse to stop looking for the truth, no matter how long it takes to find it. The case files were closed, the criminals were in prison, and the network was destroyed. But Maya's work, their work, was far from over. There were always more cold cases, more missing persons, more families waiting for answers. And now Maya wasn't searching alone.